Once a Spur, always a Spur. Right now, Jeremy Sochan is still a Spur. What is up, San Antonio Spurs fans? Welcome to TSR Sports, TGIF. And last night was the Spurs' 35th win of the season. That is the most they've ever had in this channel's history. Awesome. Also yesterday, the trade deadline passed, and the Spurs were one of three teams that did absolutely nothing. The other two teams are the Rockets and the Heat. But that doesn't mean they won't make any moves over the next few days or weeks. Actually, I don't know how long the buyout market is. Maybe you guys let me know. But the buyout market is now here, which is where players' contracts are bought out, and then they're available for other teams to come in and pick them up, which means Jeremy Sochan, it's not a guarantee he's going to stay with the Spurs this season, or maybe any other player that is currently not playing. The Spurs might want to buy them out, if possible, to open up a roster spot for another player that could be available. All right, let's get into the possible buyouts from SportTrack. Any player that's waived on this list is currently available at the time of this video. Just to let you know, the Spurs have a veteran minimum exception of $3.1 million and a full $5.1 annual exception. I don't know what any of that means. It sounds like we have $3 to $5 million available for these players. Their contracts are listed here with their current salary. However, they've played half the season, so I imagine we're going to have to only pay less than half on that, if my research is correct. If it's not, please let me know, but we will get them for less than what the listed salary is here. Okay, anyway, let's get into the list because that's the most important thing. Brian Wright and them can figure out the contract stuff in the back end. Slow-mo, Kyle Anderson, former San Antonio Spur. No. I mean, if they brought him back, it wouldn't make sense. No. Speaking of former Spurs, Malachi Branham. And I thought this was interesting. Check this out. Branham went on quite the journey at the trade deadline. He was swapped from the Washington Wizards to the Dallas Mavericks to the Charlotte Hornets. And SportTrack thinks that Branham might even get waived from the Hornets because of their crowded backcourt. Poor guy can't catch a break now. He's seen a million faces and he's rocked them all and he might not be done yet. So good luck, sweet Malachi. Ba, ba, ba. Mike Conley. We don't need an aging guard. Sorry, Mike. Pat Connaughton. No. Eric Gordon. No. Haywood Highsmith, I was originally interested in when I saw his name. I'm like, hey, that's the name I know. Then I looked at his height, and I think he's only 6'5", 6'6". He's recovering from off-season knee surgery. I could be wrong in the height, but I was like, after I looked into it, I was like, no. Isaac Jones interested me. I saw a 25-year-old power forward center, but he has barely played in the NBA. And as it says here, he's solid in the G League. So, no, I would not buy out Jeremy Sochan for a player like this, just for the record. DeAndre Jordan, if the Pelicans were to buy him out, no. Kevin Love, if he was to get the bought out, I don't think bringing in an aging center that could possibly, get an injury. I mean, players can get injuries at any moment, of course, but the older you are, the more susceptible you are to injury. So this is a no. Chris Middleton is a no just because of the salary, and he's not waived. A lot of these guys are not waived yet. This is just SportTrack putting out some players, and I've seen a lot of websites put these players on lists thinking that they might be available in the buyout market. George Yang was interesting, but apparently he's been dealing with a lot of injuries, so he hasn't actually played all season, battling a foot injury, so that's a no. Former San Antonio Spurs, somebody mentioned interest in this if he gets bought out. Could the Spurs bring Chris Paul back for one final run? I don't see it happening. I don't. This one was interesting for a half a second. Mason Plumlee, isn't he kind of a thug? I feel like when watching him play, he's kind of been the thuggy type of player, which the Spurs could certainly use, but as they say, you could do worse on big man death. I mean, could we buy out Bismack Biyombo? He's not playing, but he's a locker room guy, but he's not playing. But he is the GOAT, so who knows? Dario Saric, seems like he's barely played over the last couple years, so let's get to the point here. Let's get to Cam Thomas. Waived from the Brooklyn Nets, 24 years old. Thomas is the best player on the list. He's a scoring machine. It's not always the most efficient bucket getter, but any team that needs some scoring punch off their bench will have interest in Thomas. A team that is part of their non-taxpayer mid-level exception left over could even give Thomas a multi-year contract. The more likely path is a rest-of-season deal with a good team where Thomas can rebuild his value before hitting unrestricted free agency in July. It doesn't say he's available, but he is now, and this is the player we're going to focus on. Would you want the Spurs to buy out one of their players, whether it's Sochan or somebody else, to try to pick up Cam Thomas? This is a player that some of you wanted last season. Let's talk about him. This year, Cam Thomas, the 24-year-old shooting guard, is 6'3", 210, so I'm bigger than him. That's always a red flag for me, but it is what it is. He's played in 24 games, averaging 15.5 points, 3 assists, gets a steal once every 5 games, and his shooting splits are 40%, 33, and 84, so not the best year. Maybe we should take a look at last year to get a more idea of what this bucket getter could be for us. Well, last season, he only played in 25 games. He was injured, but he did average 24 points a game, 4 assists, half a steal, and his splits were better at 44, 35, 88. Okay. He's on the last year of his contract. Well, he waived, but I mean, you would be just picking up this year. But he has a traffic cone on defense. Everything I'm reading about him is he is not a good defensive player. Do we really need another guy that can't sling that D? Do we need another traffic cone? No, we don't. So my prediction, Spurs fans, is nothing happens. The Spurs don't buy out Sochan or anybody else on the roster and finish as is. You know what? Well, I would have liked to see maybe some sort of trade for a big or something. I'm fine with that because this roster has gotten the Spurs to second place in the Western Conference. Amazing wins, ugly wins, frustrating losses, especially all the losses we've lost by 5 or less, but they're in second place. They have the longest winning streak in the Western Conference, which I know it's only 3, but it's the longest winning streak. And they're 7-3 in their last 10. Despite some recent struggles, they're 7-3, which ties the best last 10 in the Western Conference. And in the loss column, we now have 3 less losses than the 3 teams behind us and 4 less than the Timberwolves. I don't see any way, shape, or form the Spurs don't finish at least top 7 because they're 8 losses ahead, if you will, of the Warriors. But looking more and more, absolutely the Spurs are going to finish in the top 6, make the playoffs, and maybe even make a run at first place. From what I understand, the Thunder have a pretty tough schedule moving forward. SGA is out for who knows how long, and that team is not the same without SGA. If they play 500 ball or less than 500 ball over the next couple of weeks and the Spurs start picking it up and playing better, who knows? Maybe we can make a run for first place. Anything is possible. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, I do have to say, holy crap, the Sacramento Kings suck. Is there a more dysfunctional franchise in the NBA right now? They've lost 10 in a row. They're 12-40 in last place. With all the talent that they brought in, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, they had Domantas Sabonis, Brown and Russell Westbrook. Clearly not working. They might know how to grab people with all-star names, but they don't know how to put together all-star talent. What a freaking mess in Sacramento. Oh my gosh. By the way, this kind of was under the radar a little bit this week, so I wanted to bring this up in this video because I have not addressed it except for the live situation and just momentarily when it was brought up. But if you didn't know, David Jones-Garcia, DJG, is out for the season with ankle surgery. He got hurt in a G League game. That sucks because if there was a player that I thought could possibly get promoted to the roster or at least start getting some playing time, maybe it would be him. But he is out, and I assume that means now we have an open 2-way contract. Who to pick up? I have no idea. As far as upcoming streams, Ms. TSR will be back on the stream tomorrow with me at 6 p.m. Eastern for a rematch of the Mavericks versus the Spurs. And as far as the buyouts, do you see the Spurs buying anybody out, including Sochan? And if they do, any players on that list do you think that might get bought out that they go after? Would you want Cam Thomas? Or kind of like me, like, you know what? Nothing happened with Sochan. This is a roster. This is how we started the season. Let's finish it with them and see what happens. Be very curious on your thoughts. Drop a comment. Hit the thumbs up, like, support the channel, subscribe, become part of our awesome Spurs community. Hope you're having a great weekend. Thank you, and as always, go Spurs, go!